Some Call of Duty players love to know more than others, and you guys know me as the COD historian here on YouTube, but today I'm going to test your Call of Duty knowledge. Today I'm going to be talking about 20 maps from Call of Duty history I don't think anybody actually remembers, and once you hear the whole list, I want you to tell me down in the comments how many of these you actually do remember, and we can see if there's anybody who got a perfect score. I'm going to be digging deep here, so stick around for the entire list, but I'll keep it fair. I'm just going to talk about maps from COD 4 or COD 4 onward, because I seriously doubt any of you know 90% of the maps from the first Call of Duty games, the first three. But let's test your COD knowledge today. At number 20, Creek, COD 4. Let's start off with the easy one. But also, if you don't remember Creek, you're probably not going to do well on this test. Creek was one of the only 4 DLC maps released for the original Modern Warfare. It was a gigantic map that nobody liked. It was actually brought back in Modern Warfare Remastered as part of the extremely controversial paid map pack that the game had, but it was almost never voted for because nobody liked it. It was a slow, campy snipe fest of a map with an admittedly beautiful setting. I'll give it some credit, it aged pretty well. At number 19, Stockpile in Black Ops 1. Now, the term Stockpile has actually been used for a gun perk and a game mode throughout COD history, but I'm referring to Stockpile, the DLC map from the original Black Ops. And yeah, you probably don't remember it. It's kind of a bigger but less vertical version of WMD. I mean, snowy, set in the middle of a Russian town. Layout favored snipers, slower play styles. It was okay, I guess. Nothing special. Definitely one of the less memorable maps, DLC maps that is, in the game at least. At number 18, Bailout in Modern Warfare 2 2009. Not to be confused with the character named Bailout from COD Mobile, apparently. Bailout was a DLC map on the original Modern Warfare 2, set far and away in a land of Virginia. Apartment complex busted up by the invasion of the campaign, and overall, it was just kind of weird when it came to the flow. Some people loved it for the long sniper lanes, while others hated it for the exact same reason, so this really came down to preference. I mean, I seem to remember a lot of people liking how third-person Team Tactical played here, if you remember that. But, yeah, I mean, you probably don't remember the map. At number 17, Station in World at War. We actually talked about this map not too long ago, where I called it the worst map in World at War, and I'm willing to bet some of you only know the map exists because you watched that video a few weeks ago. Station, part of the first DLC pack for World at War. Medium-sized map set in a train station in Berlin. Now, the setting was cool, but the layout, it was a little chaotic. It didn't really fit the gameplay style of World at War as a whole. Remember that Operation Metro map from Battlefield 3 and 4? Station kind of reminds me of that map, but as you know, Battlefield and COD play very differently. Yeah, so Station didn't really work the way Operation Metro did. At number 16, Piaza, Modern Warfare 3 2011, set on the coast of Italy. Piaza was one of the first DLC maps released for the classic Modern Warfare 3. Pretty decent. Kind of like a sea town in the sense that it had you running around a bunch of coastal buildings and structures. I think it was in the Amalfi Coast. Heavy emphasis on high and low ground. In fact, I think the similarities between Piaza and Sea Town are the main reason why hardly anybody remembers it. It wasn't bad, it was unique, had random alleyways and buildings you could duck in and out of, but at the end of the day, it was a paid DLC map. It was very similar to the launch map. And basically anyone would tell you the launch map that it was similar to was way better. At number 15, Storm in Modern Warfare 2 2009. Now, this DLC map was set in a warehouse district in the middle of a heavy rainstorm, which made it visibly pretty limited. Add a lot of power to the various buildings that you could duck in and out of for cover. You decided to run around outside. You were going to have a hard time seeing what the heck was in front of you, but if you stuck to the interiors, you would be a lot easier to shoot down unless you were able to lock down one of the buildings before anyone else. It was a pretty fun dynamic map, but that dark lighting made it less popular, and the fact you had to pay for it, it added extra roadblocks. Now, there were some iconic DLC maps in classic Modern Warfare 2, like Trailer Park and the one set in the amusement park, but nobody talks about Storm. At number 14, Intersection in Modern Warfare 3 2011. Now, there is a lot of urban maps in the classic Modern Warfare 3 game, and that makes sense given the fact the game takes place in the middle of World War III, but the sheer number of urban maps available, some of them are going to fade into obscurity. Intersection was one of the face-off maps back when face-off meant something completely different than it does today. It was set in the middle of New York, meaning this wasn't even the only urban map set in New York. In fact, I think it was the 3rd or 4th multiplayer map set in New York in the game. I'm not trying to talk crap here. I just think the high number of urban New York maps made people forget about this one because out of all of them, it was probably the least memorable and it was limited to face-off. At number 13, Corrosion in World at War. Now, this was one of the smaller maps in World at War, and it was released as a part of the second DLC, which was released in June of 2009. Yes, the second DLC for World at War is just a couple months away from its 17th birthday. The map was pretty decent, set in Stalingrad, had some cool visuals that Treyarch admittedly kind of ripped from the campaign, but that's okay. There's no chance any of you played this map. Again, maybe I have some old heads watching these videos, so maybe 1 or 2 of you actually got to check this one off your list, but I lost a lot of you here. I'm not convinced anybody is going to go perfect 20 for 20 here, but we're going to keep going. At number 12, Lookout in Modern Warfare 3 2011. Yet another urban desert map set in the Middle East, which didn't exactly help it stand out after 3 Modern Warfare games full of urban desert maps set in the Middle East. It's also locked to the face-off playlist again, which meant the player base was inherently smaller for it, although it was brought back in COD Online, which a lot of you never got to play because you didn't have access. I'm really not sure how the COD Online developers chose what maps to bring back. It's not like Lookout was an all-time favorite, but then again, the COD Online description for the map referred to it as a classic map from Modern Warfare 3. So it was just a big, I don't know, maybe there was a big Lookout fan club I wasn't part of. I barely remembered the map. At number 11, Parish in Modern Warfare 3 2011. Now this is a map that really should have been more memorable than it was because it's one of the coolest settings in the entire Modern Warfare trilogy. It took place in the French Quarter of New Orleans. Very unique, almost arena-style layout where you were constantly running around the outskirts of a rectangle-shaped map or running straight into the middle to challenge somebody who dared to face you, but for whatever reason, this map didn't stick with people. Despite the cool setting and super unique layout, maybe there just wasn't that many people buying the DLC maps late in the Modern Warfare 3 lifecycle, or maybe there were people buying the maps, but they just weren't getting many opportunities to play this map specifically with the sheer number of maps in the game by the time Parish was released. Regardless, this is a map that should be remembered, but it's not. At number 10, Salvage in Modern Warfare 2 2009. I mean, you probably don't remember this one, that's why it's here today, but I remember it because I actually played the DLC back in the original Modern Warfare 2. Salvage, set in a snowy junkyard. Fantastic for close-range shotgunning and SMG rushing. There was also this weird little Easter egg on the map where there was a detailed diagram of the Makarov handgun, which isn't exactly... Actually, I don't think it is in Modern Warfare 2, but it is in the original Black Ops, which hadn't been announced at the time. So if you don't remember anything else about Salvage, remember it for being the map where Black Ops 1 was teased. Yeah. Who remembers in-map teasers? Those were good times in Call of Duty. I mean, when was the last time there was something subtle like this teased in the next game? At number 9. Ignition in COD Ghosts. Now, if you dig into the game files for COD Ghosts, you'll find that this map is actually referred to as Boneyard, which is a way better name. I have no idea why they went with Ignition. Honestly, I would remember a map just for being called Boneyard. I think you would too. Ignition? Could mean anything. This map was actually a remake of Scrapyard from Modern Warfare 2, and you would think that it would be more memorable, but it wasn't. I mean, I never saw a situation in COD history where a classic all-time favorite map gets a remake, and yet hardly anybody remembers it happened. Honestly, the fact that it's a remake of Scrapyard just made Boneyard an even more appropriate name. Why would you call it Ignition? At number 8, Silo in Black Ops 1. It reminded me a lot of Launch, but it was basically just a worse version of Launch. Most everybody remembers the map Launch from Black Ops 1 or BO4. I think it was brought back in that game. And Silo was a DLC map that took place at a launch facility, but it was a much bigger one than Launch, and frankly, it was worse balanced. Launch was a very well balanced and even map. Silo felt more random, a lot more boring since there was more ground you had to cover in between fights. Now, when I mention the Black Ops 1 map with the launching rockets, you probably think of Launch. Nobody thinks of Silo, even though they had the same theme. At number 7, Swarm in Advanced Warfare. Now, if I say Call of Duty Swarm, you think of the kill streak from Black Ops 2. But I'm actually talking about a map from Advanced Warfare that nobody remembers. Very straightforward map set in an urban part of South Korea, just like several other Advanced Warfare maps. Now, in practice, Swarm was basically Detroit, but with a South Korean paint job. Much less engaging layout, and that's probably why nobody remembers it. And it was also a paid DLC map in a game where not a lot of people were buying the DLC. At number 6, I'm going to get you here. Battery in World at War. Released as part of the 3rd map pack for World at War. It was an extremely versatile map set on an armored island, so it was actually one of the most unique settings in the game, but it was also part of the 3rd DLC pack for World at War. So I have serious doubts that anybody remembers it. Now, I remember Battery. I remember it being a really fun and well-balanced map where basically every playstyle had pros and cons, which was cool. So I gotta ask, are you stumped yet? Because at this point, I'm pretty sure everyone has given up on a perfect score. And we still have 5 maps to go. At number 5, Subzero in Ghosts. Now, with a name like Subzero, you would think this map would be more memorable, but instead it's one of the most forgettable maps in COD Ghosts, and this is a game where a lot of maps stood out for good or bad reasons. A lot of the DLC maps were memorable for good reasons, and most of the launch maps were memorable for bad reasons, but Subzero, it was released as part of the Nemesis DLC, and it was kind of just there. It took place at a snowy Canadian subbase, and the layout was okay, pretty straightforward. It's not like it was bad, but it didn't have anything to stand out. I I mean, I guess you could say it had a cool field order where you could summon monsters in a snowstorm, but that didn't really happen, and it wasn't a super memorable field order when compared to other bangers like Predator and Michael Myers. Subzero wasn't bad, it was forgettable. At number 4, Decommission, Modern Warfare 3, the original. Set on the Indian coast at a big ship graveyard. Kind of cool, but it had the same problem that a lot of DLC maps in the game had. Way too similar to a launch map that was objectively better, so nobody cared about it. Decommission was really similar to Aground, which I'm sure a lot of you remember from being one of the main face-off maps. Now, Decommission, basically the same theming, the same lighting, and the same colors, but a different, larger layout, and most people didn't think it was an improvement. Nobody remembers the map, but basically everyone who played Modern Warfare 3 remembers Aground. At number 3, Perplex in Advanced Warfare. Are you perplexed yet? You're probably perplexed hearing this name of the map. You never heard of the map, and you know why? Because not many people did. Set in Sydney, Australia. 5-story apartment complex. Short to mid-range map, that's all there is to say about it because nobody remembers it. It wasn't bad, but nobody cared. At number 2, Offshore in Modern Warfare 3, the original. Set on an oil rig in the middle of the ocean. It's one of those maps that probably should have been a lot more memorable because, I mean, it's a freaking oil rig in the middle of the ocean. Maps that take place in the middle of the ocean are just inherently memorable, but not this one. I think when people look back at the middle of the ocean maps from this era of COD, they think of ones like Hijacked from Black Ops 2 or the other Black Ops 2 DLC map that was a remake of Stadium from Black Ops 1, but it was on an island. I can't remember what it was called, but you could see Hijacked out in the distance. What I remember, it was good. Just cool setting, forgettable though. And at number 1 today, Foundation in Modern Warfare 3 2011. You don't remember this map? Do not lie to me or yourself. You don't. A cement factory in South Korea, released in April of 2012 as part of Content Pack 4. How many of you actually bought Content Pack 4? And if you were buying all the content packs, how many times did you actually play on this map with the sheer number of maps in rotation for COD Elite subscribers? Yeah, who remembers COD Elite? And if you did somehow play on this map more than once, tell me about it. Do you remember anything about it? Do you remember it existed? Of course you don't remember. Foundation is the single most forgotten map in COD history. I will die on this hill. Although I'm really curious to go down to the comment sections of the video and see how many of you think you got a perfect score. I'm willing to bet none of you did. Circle of trust. I'll see you soon.